family finally found Book 1. After the dust settles, Chapter 3. Take your cryptids to work day. Maddie slowly crawled her way into consciousness, her mouth and eyes dry from last night's fire. Birds chirped outside the tent, and filtered sunlight lit the inside. She rolled and uttered a soft grunt, her muscles stiff and sore from the stress and activity of the last 2 days. Sleeping essentially on the ground probably didn't do her back any favors. Maybe they should have figured out a way to sleep inside after all. Yawning, she rubbed the sleep from her eyes. Snores surrounded her, Tom on her right, and the boys on her left. Everyone had dropped pretty solidly last night. They had all been thoroughly exhausted. She turned, checking on the boys. Sonic lay spread eagle, his mouth open and a thin line of drool glistening down his chin. Tails had rolled over at some point in the night, flipping himself so that his head was even with the hedgehog's feet. His twin tails fanned out near Sonic's face, and every exhale of the blue boy's snore cascaded over the soft fur in a puff of wind. And Knuckles. The last tendrils of sleep suddenly snapped, and Maddie was now wide awake. The echidna was missing.
Tom,
she hissed, shaking her husband.
wake up.
The man snorted, jerking himself into a half-sitting position.
What's the matter?
Knuckles is gone.
She unzipped the tent flap and crawled out, blinking in the bright sun of morning.
What?
The question turned into a yawn, and Tom ran a hand over his face. He was still fighting his way to full wakefulness.
Will you get out here and help me look for him? He could be anywhere.
I am here.
A deep voice called from a patch of nearby trees. The red echidna walked into the light, clutching the strap of the canvas bag slung across him. His other hand rested on the outline of the master emerald inside.
See?
Tom said, emerging from the tent and wincing. Seems she wasn't the only one who was sore. He leaned backward to stretch his spine.
He's fine.
Uttering a relieved sigh, Maddie moved closer and placed a hand on Knuckles' shoulder.
You nearly gave me a heart attack, big guy.
Knuckles raised his eyebrows, an expression of surprise passing his features. He dipped his head in a small bow.
Apologies, madam. I did not intend to cause you harm.
She smiled, standing upright again.
Figure of speech, Knox. It just means you scared me. Where'd you go?
I work with the Southern Patrol the area, ensuring our safety. The many trees are perfect cover for an ambush.
He paused, cocking an eyebrow toward her.
Why were you afraid?
Because I don't want anything to happen to you.
She said, massaging one particularly hard knot in her shoulder.
You could get lost or hurt.
Impossible, for I am the greatest warrior in the galaxy.
He said, puffing out his chest and drumming a fist against it.
I do nothing.
Well, I do. Just do me a favor and don't wander off like that again. Think we're gonna have to set some ground rules from now on.
She looked over her shoulder at Tom, who nodded.
So, the first rule of the Wachowski household: always let someone know where you're going.
The echidna furrowed his brow for a few seconds.
I am part of this house of Wachowski.
Maddie exchanged a glance with her husband before hunkering down before Knuckles.
If you want to be, you and Tails are both welcome to join our family, but only if it's truly what you want.
No pressure, big guy.
Tom said, his voice soft.
You're welcome to stay as long as you like. If you decide in a few days you'd rather move on, we will be sad to see you go but won't stop you. It's entirely your call.
The echidna lowered his head, his hand squeezing tighter over the emerald's outline. After a few seconds he looked up, flicking his eyes between the copal.
I will consider your offer as a big decision, joining a new tribe, and I am unfamiliar with your planet and its customs. It is too strange here.
Maddie gave a little laugh as she stood.
Kid, I sometimes think the same thing.
She tilted her head in a quick wink.
But we do have grapes.
Knuckles smiled.
Those are very good.
So planet Earth isn't all bad.
Tom said.
But back to point, try not to wander off without letting anyone know from my own camps.
The Echidna have a short nod.
Understood.
Good.
What time is it?
Maddie asked, digging her phone out of the tent. She tapped the screen and gave a small gasp. Yep, leaving.
Almost 7:30. I have to get to the clinic in an hour.
You shower first.
Tom said, rubbing a hand across his cheek stubble.
I'll get them there to up and get them some breakfast and jump in when you're done.
Sounds like a plan.
She said, sprinting toward the house. A hot shower sounded like heaven. Voices floated up the stairs. As Maddie walked into the hallway, she had been right. A shower made her feel like a new woman. Despite the time crunch, she stood under the hot water for a few minutes, letting it flow over her, soothing her sore muscles and rinsing away the sweat, dirt, and grime of the past 2 days. A quick wash, a deep condition for her hair, a fresh set of clothes, and she felt ready to face the world. Coming down the stairs, she heard a conversation between the rest of her family. She smiled. Family. Funny how that word came to mind so easily, despite the fact that 2 of the 4 people down there had only been in their care for less than 24 hours.
Why would I want to eat brightly colored rocks?
Knuckles' baritone asked, making Maddie smile and drawing laughter from Sonic.
They're not really rocks.
Tom said, a smile in his voice.
Fruity Pebbles is just a name based on an old curve down near little sugar-coated bits of puff corn, I think.
I like these frosted flakes.
Tails said, his mouth full.
They're really good.
Wait till you get your 3rd bowl down.
Sonic said as Maddie rounded the corner into the kitchen.
Then they really taste good.
Stick with 1 bowl for now.
She said, grabbing a mug from the cabinet and pouring herself some coffee.
I don't think Tails has quite your metabolism or iron stomach to down that much sugar.
Hey, you look good.
Tom said, reaching for his wife. She shooed him away.
You're still filthy. Go get cleaned up, then we'll smooch.
Cross?
Sonic chimed in between bites of his own bowl of frosted flakes. Knuckles, meanwhile, searched the cereal cabinet for something that appealed. There were a lot of choices, as Sonic's appetite meant they went through a box every few days. He moved some boxes around before uttering a pleased.
Oh,
Find something, big guy.
Maddie asked, sipping her coffee. The Echidna pulled out a box of grape nuts.
I shall have these for first meal.
I thought you didn't want to eat rocks.
Sonic asked, twisting his muzzle in distaste.
'Cause that's what those are.
They are not.
Maddie said, pulling a bowl down for the eldest boy.
They are high in fiber and all natural.
Says tree bark, but I'm not gonna eat it.
The hedgehog said, drawing laughter from Tails. She turned to the Echidna.
Don't listen to him, but I will warn you. Nuts, those don't taste like grapes.
The boy paused, giving the box in his hand a cocked eyebrow.
Then why does the box then they do?
Maddie shrugged.
I honestly don't know, but they are good for digestion and help keep you regular.
Knuckles looked at the box. An idea suddenly occurred to Maddie.
Hey, hold on. I know something you might like.
She reached into the cabinet and pulled out a box of raisin bran.
These have good fiber and raisins. Those are basically little shriveled grapes.
Shriveled grapes.
Sure.
She reached into the box and fished one out.
Free one.
The boy reached for it, but his bulky mitts didn't provide the needed dexterity to grasp the small dried fruit. Maddie offered a kind smile.
Open up.
Knuckles hesitated for a second, then lifted his snout to open his mouth wide. Poking his tongue out slightly, Maddie placed the raisin on his tongue, and he pulled it into his mouth. After chewing for a few seconds, he nodded.
These shriveled grapes are almost as tasty as the unshriveled ones.
He gave Maddie a small smile.
Almost.
I'll add them to my new shopping list,
She said, preparing a bowl of cereal for the boy. She grabbed a tablespoon from the drawer. She figured a larger spoon would work better with his gloves, and set him up at the kitchen island.
There you go, Red.
Thank you for your assistance.
He said, pulling himself onto his stool. He scooped the first spoonful into his mouth and chewed, eventually nodding in satisfaction.
An acceptable meal.
So what are we gonna do today?
Sonic asked, finishing off his third bowl. He drank the leftover milk and put the dishes in the sink.
I could show the guys around town and introduce them to everyone.
I think that may be a bit overwhelming right off the bat.
Maddie said, refreshing her coffee.
For everyone. Besides, Gon is still hanging around and Main Street's a mess.
She glanced at Knuckles, who had lowered his head slightly.
Not that it's any of your fault, mind you, but it may be best to keep a low profile for a bit.
Oh, again with the hiding.
Sonic muttered, slumping back on his stool.
So what? Are we supposed to just hang around the house all day while you and Dumbledore are at work?
I didn't say you needed to hide.
She said, checking her phone messages.
I was thinking you guys could come to the clinic with me.
Sonic moaned.
You want to poke us?
No.
She paused, a guilty smile on her face.
Well, yes, I want to get some baseline records for you guys.
What does that mean?
Tails asked, taking his bowl to the sink.
She wants to poke us.
Sonic said, perching his elbow on the counter and resting his chin on the heel of his hand.
She did it with me when I first came to live with them.
He brightened.
Hey, does that mean I don't have to?
Sorry, Blue. You've grown quite a bit over the past 8 months. I want to get some new readings to compare to the previous ones.
The boy groaned, letting his head drop to the counter.
Man.
Tails still looked unsure.
Poke us.
She offered him a reassuring smile.
I'm a veterinarian, which is basically a doctor for animals. I want to take some quiz of you guys, get your vitals recorded, height and weight, body temperature, that kinda thing, and take some blood. It's basically so I know what's normal for you, should you get sick or hurt in the future.
She shot a stink eye at Sonic. Think out.
The blood work is honestly the thing that takes the least amount of time, but Blue Boy over there pitches such a fit when we try to take it.
I don't like needles.
He muttered, rolling his head to face away from her.
Said the boy with a head full of them.
But it really hurts.
It wouldn't if you would just hold still for the few seconds it takes.
You're here.
Maddie turned to Knuckles, who was nearly done with his cereal.
A healer of animals is, at least I try my best to heal them.
He furrowed his brow, lowering his head slightly. After a few seconds of thought, he raised his head again, sitting straight and tall.
I shall be honored to join you at your clinic. I will sit still for the poking and any other healing ritual you deem necessary.
Great.
Maddie said, rinsing her cup out in the sink.
Tails, you okay with me running a few tests?
The little fox drew his hands to his chest, touching the tips of the pointer fingers of each hand together.
They won't hurt, will they?
She shook her head.
Don't listen to Sonic. The blood work only takes a few seconds, and it's just a teeny little needle.
Tails bit his lip.
Oh, I guess so.
Do I get a city too?
The hedgehog asked, lifting his head.
'Cause I really don't want to do this.
Do what?
Tom walked around the corner, freshly shaven, his hair still slightly damp from his shower. He worked the buttons on his sheriff uniform.
What's he crank about?
I want to take them to the clinic for some tests.
Maddie said, planting a kiss on his cheek. This.
You look good, by the way.
Thank you, thought so.
Why do you dress like that?
Knuckles asked, finishing his bowl.
Is it ceremonial garb?
It's my work uniform.
Tom said, rolling up his sleeves.
I'm the sheriff of Green Hills.
Knuckles gave him a questioning look.
A protector, kind of like a warrior in a way, keep the town and its people safe.
The Echida's face lit up. Mid.
Ah, a warrior chief. I would not have wished.
Tom furrowed his brow and turned to his wife.
Should I be offended by that?
She giggled.
Now, Nux is learning all sorts of things this morning.
She turned to Sonic.
I'm not going to force you to come, but I'm asking you to, and I think Tails and Knuckles would be more comfortable having you there.
I will be fine.
The Echida said, taking his bowl to the sink as he had seen the others do.
Your tests will be no match for me. I will pass them all easily.
Not those kind of tests, big guy.
Maddie said, before turning back to the hedgehog.
Come on, Blue.
She paused, a small smile curling her lips.
We've got a new litter of kittens that need some loving on.
Sonic considered this.
How old are they?
Going on 4 weeks.
The boy scrunched up his face.
Oh, that's the cutest little age. They're starting to plan.
He caught himself, clearing his throat and assuming a more controlled posture.
I mean, sure. Yes, besides, Tails will need someone to hold his hand when you pull out those harpoons you call needles.
The little fox turned to give Maddie a terrified look, and she shook her head. She held a finger and thumbed a millimeter apart.
Tiny.
Well, we seem to have this under control.
Tom said, taking the last gulp of his coffee.
I'm going to get moving. I to find the commander and see about getting the house fixed.
He gave her a kiss, lingering a little longer than normal.
Call if you need anything. Good luck.
Maddie gave a wave as her husband hurried out the front door. She uttered a little laugh in her throat. Luck, she wouldn't need luck. Everything was going to be fine. Still, her first full day as the guardian to 3 super-powered boys. She'd be lying if she didn't admit a small amount of fear stirring in the back of her mind. Tails and Knuckles were still a little unsure about things. About her, Sonic had been the same way when he first came to them, but they had gotten through it. She hoped this settling-in period would go smoother, based on what she learned in the past.
All right, boys.
She called, gathering her work bag and car keys.
Now let's move out.
Sonic pulled the door to the clinic open and stood aside to let Maddie in first.
What a little gentleman.
The woman said, giving him a smile. He moved to walk through next, but Knuckles literally muscled past. The Echidna gave him a questioning look as he entered the lobby behind Maddie. Tails stood back, a look of uncertainty on his little face. The hedgehog rolled his eyes and gestured for the kid to go in before him. Finally, Sonic walked into the clinic lobby, and no one seemed to notice.
Oh my goodness, what an adorable little cutie.
Lexa, the woman at the front desk, exclaimed as Tails blushed.
Look at you.
The fox kit curled his tails around himself, and Lexa placed a hand on her chest to lean heavily against the desk.
I'm dying of cuteness overload here, I swear.
Whoa, Lexi, pull it back a notch.
Maddie said, picking up a flow of tails.
You're freaking the kid out.
The woman behind the counter laughed, but seemed to compose herself.
Sorry, sweetie.
The woman behind the counter laughed, but seemed to compose herself.
I'm Lexi. It's very nice to meet you.
Tails unfluffed slightly and offered her a hand.
Hello, I'm Tails.
Maddie set the fox on the counter as Lex chatted and ran a hand up and down his back to soothe him. His tails withdrew and swung lazily off the counter.
I'm here too.
Sonic muttered to himself. A tightness had appeared in his chest, knotting itself right behind his ribs.
Nice to see anyone notices.
To the left of the counter, one of the other vets had come into the lobby and stopped to take in the new arrivals.
Aren't you a big one?
Dr. Naya Singh said, hand on a hip as she looked at Knuckles. He was nearly as tall as she.
Are you a hat out too?
A snarl briefly passed the older boy's muzzle, but he suppressed it quickly.
I am Knuckles, an echidna warrior.
The doctor must have realized her mistake and lowered her head in a little bow.
I apologize for the error. Mean no disrespect to your race.
Knuckles offered her a smile and dipped his head in return.
No need to apologize. I am new to your world, with similar rules. It is an easy mistake to make.
Like being a hedgehog is so horrible.
Sonic said bros furrowed.
Echidna aren't all that great.
Sonic.
Lexi hollered, making Sonic jump.
What are you doing looking all glum over there? Get your tail back here and give me a hug, you little goober.
The tightness in his chest lessened as eyes turned to him. Dr. Naya held a hand out as he passed, and he gave her a quick high five before being pulled into a bear hug by the woman behind the counter.
Ooh, it's been a while since you've been by.
Lexi said, luring him to sit on the desk. Did it?
Good to see you, Blue.
He smiled, and his chest felt a little lighter still.
Good to be seen. Had a bit of trouble over the weekend. Some big robot or something had to save the town. You know how it is.
Yep, I know how it is.
The woman said, smiling.
This place would fall apart without me.
She leaned forward and spoke behind her hand in an exaggerated stage whisper.
It's hard being the one keeping things together, am I right?
Sonic laughed.
You are so right.
Maddie rolled her eyes with a smile.
All right, who are done assuming credit for everything that's ever been done. We've got a clinic to run.
She pulled Tails off the counter and shooed the boys into the back.
Would you pull Sonic's file for me? And we'll need to start new ones for Tails and Knuckles.
Will do, Maddie.
Sonic gave the woman a wave as he followed Maddie back to her office. The tight feeling in his chest had lessened, but not disappeared entirely. At lunchtime, Maddie had ordered a pizza for the boys, and the three now sat in the little kitchen at the back of the clinic to eat. Sonic ate slower than normal. It was hard to swallow past the knot in his chest. It had grown steadily throughout the morning, becoming heavier with every test Maddie ran. He kept his eyes on his food, not daring to look up at Tails or Knuckles. He hated doing these checkups. It was boring and a waste of perfectly good goof-off time, and with two more boys who needed them, in between Maddie's scheduled clients for today, it was taking forever. Tails, on the other hand, found the whole thing fascinating. He asked smart questions, seemed to understand the answers, and chatted with Maddie in a way Sonic could. When it came to machines and this science stuff, it was like the kid was a grown-up in an 8-year-old's body. He really was a genius. Knuckles was more reserved when it came to talking, but he sat so still during every X-ray and physical exam. He didn't even flinch when Maddie poked him for blood work. Tails had flinched a bit when the needle went in, but other than that, he was... Sonic, on the other hand, had nearly passed out. It was unbelievably embarrassing. He had tried to play it cool, especially since the other two had done it without complaint, but the minute he saw the needle coming toward him, the world swam. He clenched onto the chair's armrest, squeezing so tightly his arms still hurt. Heart racing, he clamped his eyes shut, and Maddie's voice had sounded so far away, She had quickly moved him to the little couch in her office and had him lie down for a while until he felt better. That had been half an hour ago. Maddie did not suggest a second attempt.
Maybe we'll try another day,
She had said, and the pity in her eyes made him feel sick to his stomach. Some hero,
This is really good.
Tails said, and Sonic had an idea that he was trying to break the tension.
Can you put other things on pizza?
The hedgehog nodded.
Yep, all sorts of stuff. Just about anything you want.
I would like grapes on another one.
Knuckles said, and Sonic uttered an annoyed sigh.
Grapes don't go with everything.
Have you tried it?
No, but
Then you do not know. I would try it.
Sonic did respond. This was a stupid conversation and he wasn't going to continue arguing the fact that grapes didn't belong on pizza, even though they don't. Everyone knows that. Everyone but Knuckles. Apparently, the perfect warrior who didn't so much as bat an eyelash when he got poked with a needle and sat oh so still for every other test. My goodness, isn't he just so perfect?
stop it. Just stop it right now. He had to be tough to survive as he ran around the galaxy, looking for that gem in the bag slung across him, while you were running around Green Hills. Hiding and goofing off in your cave, he was fighting for his life. He's not doing anything to try and one-up you. This is just the way he is. So stop being such a jerk.
He scolded himself. He glanced up and caught sight of the bandage wrapped around the Echida's arm. Tails had a matching dressing, covering the one where they each had blood successfully and uneventfully drawn. Sonic's arm was glaringly bare. The hedgehog furrowed his brow and wished the knot in his chest would untie itself and go away. Tails peeked over at Sonic from the corner of his eye. The hedgehog was unusually quiet and withdrawn, especially after the failed blood work incident. He was probably pretty embarrassed by it, but there was something else eating at the boy. The kid could practically sense it. In his short life, Tails had been in situations like this before. Every now and then, some family decided to take pity on him and try to take him in. The kids already in the family would inevitably get jealous, or just flat out dislike him because of either his extra tail, or his intelligence, or both. He was the intruder in the family, the interloper. These negative emotions would fester until the inevitable explosion, in which there was lots of shouting, crying, and anger thrown about. It always ended with him back on his own, and it always started with this awkward silence, this tension. Tails pushed those thoughts away, and tried to look at all possible causes for Sonic's sullen mood. Maybe he was simply embarrassed about before. Maybe he was feeling antsy and frustrated about being stuck at the clinic instead of out exploring and having fun. Maybe those 3 bowls of frosted flakes had caught up with him, and he needed to run a bit to burn them off. Still, a nagging thought poked at the back of his mind. Maybe the hedgehog was realizing that asking them to stay wasn't such a great idea. Deep in his heart, Tails expected a moment like this. He just never thought it would come so soon. Knuckles wiped his muzzle with the back of his hand. This pizza was messy, but tasty, and he hoped to try it with grapes in the future. Despite what the hedgehog said, grapes could make anything better. Today had been an interesting experience. He had never been to such a well-stocked healer hut clinic before, and the machines healer Maddie had were most impressive. One could look inside your body. This planet had such a strange mix of magics and technology. The fox seemed to understand how these machines worked. A weak fighter, but strong finger. A good ollie to have. A warrior's hurt. Even if the kid sometimes let fear take hold, he could help the boy with that. Make him stronger, braver. The hedgehog acted strange. Now that the battle was over, and he had time to think, did he regret offering his friendship to Knuckles? It would be understandable. The Echidna had helped his enemy, and nearly killed him. Nearly gotten the man and woman who acted as his guardians killed, as well, almost destroyed his home. There were lots of possible reasons for the hedgehog's unease. And to be honest, Knuckles didn't blame the boy for feeling such a way. If the situation were reversed, he supposed he would have trouble fully trusting someone who had started out as an enemy. There would always be that seed of doubt. But the truth was, he respected Sonic. The boy had lost everything, just like Knuckles had, yet still remained positive and hopeful. He still fought for what he felt was right, deep in his heart, protected those he loved, and he had saved Knuckles from the crumbling temple, even though, moments before, the Echidna had tried to kill him. Yet again, the hedgehog may not be well trained in combat, but he had a warrior's heart nonetheless. A hero's heart, which is what fed into the guilt the Echidna carried even more. Sonic was indeed a true hero, who had risked everything to save his home, his family, his planet. He had extended his hand in friendship to the enemy who had fought him at every turn, invited that former enemy into his home, into his family. Knuckles had been a fool to have believed Robotnik so blindly, and the guilt he felt when he thought of all he had done based on that man's words seemed never-ending. The shame of being tricked so easily and completely ate at his heart. He didn't know how long he would be welcome in Sonic's home, in the house of Wachowski, but every moment he stayed, he would carry himself with honor. He would do all he could to repay their kindness and prove himself worthy of their trust. Maddie walked into the kitchen and was met with 3 sore-faced kids, each lost in his own thoughts.
Yaks.
She said, hands on her hips.
What the heck, guys? Today wasn't that bad, was it?
The boys glanced at each other, before looking back at her.
Well, I think I know something that will brighten those glum faces.
She said, tossing the pizza box into the trash.
Number 1, we're all done with your checkups.
Thank goodness.
Sonic muttered, whipping his muzzle with a napkin.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Maddie said, a smile curling her lips.
We've got some little kittens who could use some socializing.
Sonic's face immediately brightened.
All right.
He exclaimed, sounding more like his usual self.
I forgot about the kittens.
You have kittens?
Tails asked, a smile pulling at the corner of his mouth.
Can I see them?
You can all spend the rest of the day playing with them, after you wash up.
On it?
The hedgehog cried, and zipped to the sink. Tails and Knuckles followed close behind.
Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
Tails gushed, flicking his tails to tease 2 little calicos.
Are there always kittens here?
Sonic shook his head, rolling a fuzzy ball toward a little black kitten. The baby made a wobbly pounce and rolled over the ball.
Not always, but sometimes they'll get a strain who gives birth and they adopt the babies out once they're old enough.
Lucky babies.
The fox kit said, and Sonic thought he was talking mostly to himself. Tails leaned down to the kittens currently rolling in his tail fluff.
I hope you find families want you. I love you, and will always take care of you.
The knot in Sonic's chest had loosened when Maddie released the litter into the room, but now his heart squeezed. How could these kittens have a better prospect for homes than this fox did his entire life?
They'll find good homes, Tails.
He said softly, and the fox looked over at him.
Just like you did.
The kit looked away quickly, his muzzle flaring hot. Sonic smiled, glancing over his shoulder at Knuckles.
How you doing, Knucks?
The Echidna sat cross-legged, his back against the wall, the canvas bag containing the Master Emerald set beside him. The first time he had taken the bag off since Maddie had given it to him yesterday afternoon. The mother cat lay in his lap, curled and content, purring softly. Knuckles slowly stroked the calico's back, his face calm and relaxed.
I am well, Sonic. This creature's ovation is very soothing.
Yep, it sure is.
The hedgehog said, turning back to the kitten currently batting the ball. His door mood from earlier seemed so long ago, so silly. Had he really been jealous of Knuckles simply because the older boy had been cooperative and well-behaved during Maddie's exams? Seemed like a really stupid reason now.
Sonic!
The fox's voice was soft, almost afraid.
Yes?
Tails paused, brows furrowed. He wouldn't look at the hedgehog, focusing instead on the kitten's romping and his tail fluff. The boy trailed off, as if changing his mind.
You tell me. Never meant.
Tell you what.
Nothing. Don't worry about it. It's dumb.
Oh, what is it?
The kid pulled his lips tight.
If you wanted me to leave.
He cast a sideways glance to the hedgehog.
You tell me, right?
Sonic's jaw dropped open. Shock had so thoroughly overtaken his brain, he literally couldn't form words. Tails didn't actually think he would be asked to leave, did he? Why on earth would that even cross his mind? The hedgehog glanced behind him and found Knuckles watching, leaning forward, his eyes sharp and focused. Sonic didn't think he looked angry, but to be honest, the Echidna always looked kind of angry, all the time. Sonic looked back at the fox.
Tails. He started, his brain just starting to work again.
He started, his brain just starting to work again.
I'd never. I mean, I would, but...
He realized how this was sounding, so he closed his mouth and gave his head a shake as he moved closer to the younger boy.
Tails, why do you think I'd want you to leave?
The kid shrugged.
Because usually the Cryptids don't like villains coming in. It causes a bunch of bad feelings. And I really like being your friend. So if staying with you would change that, then I'd rather leave and be your friend than stay and have you eventually hate me.
The knot reappeared in Sonic's chest, but this time he thought it was his heart actually breaking. This boy, this brave, sweet fox boy, had suffered so much rejection in his young life. It was all he knew, all he expected. And even now, when Sonic was sure he had finally found where he belonged, the kid still believed it would only be temporary. A thought occurred to Sonic, and he nearly guessed at how obvious it was, but that he'd never realized it before now. For as brilliant as Tails was, he was still a kid, a really young kid who never had a real home or family, ever. For as far as Sonic knew, this whole situation must have been a double-edged sword for the little fox. There was the thrill of being around people who accepted him and didn't turn him away, but there was also the worry, the sheer terror that at any moment he could be, because that's all anyone had done to him in the past. Sonic's heart melted, and he felt more protective of this little fox kid than he ever had. The boy needed him, despite being a genius, despite leaving behind everything he'd ever known to seek Sonic out, and despite risking his life to help stop Robotnik. He was still a little kid who was terrified of being rejected again. This boy needed him.
Tails,
He said, his voice soft.
I could never hate you. You saved me. You risked everything to come and help me. Sure, there were some bumps, but you always stood by me. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. You're a little fox boy. You're right where you belong. Afraid you're stuck with me for the foreseeable future there, buddy. So sorry, and no more questions.
The fox giggled, making Sonic smile.
Seriously, though, I don't care if all those others didn't see you for the great guy you are. It's their loss. You're here now. You're Wachowski now. There's no escaping it. Just accept that you're here for good.
Eyes shiny, muzzle burning, Tails smiled up at the hedgehog.
Really?
The hedgehog gave him a kind smile.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sonic.
His voice was little more than a whisper.
All right. We can leave it like that.
Sonic said, holding his arms wide.
Come on. Bring it in.
The fox didn't hesitate, and threw himself into the weakening embrace. He squeezed, and laughed when the hedgehog squeezed back. The kid buried his face in Sonic's shoulder, his tears wetting the older boy's fur. The hedgehog smiled, blinking away his own tears. He glanced back at Knuckles, who had relaxed back to stroking the cat in his lap. He offered Sonic a small nod. The blue boy nodded back, giving Tails another squeeze.
Hey, Tails.
He said, and the kid pulled back.
Think you could help me be brave?
Tails wiped his nose, a questioning look on his face.
With what?
Sonic shrugged.
Well, you and Nuts are sporting such fashionable armbands, I just have to have one of my own.
He twitted, his voice soft.
I might need some help, though.
The kid smiled, nodding his head.
You thought it, Sonic!
The hedgehog took a deep breath as he stood to find Maddie. This was probably a mistake. This was definitely a mistake. They were in Maddie's office. He sat in a chair, feeling for all the world like he was awaiting his execution. Lexi and Maddie stood to the right, preparing the Vizan, other things necessary for the blood draw. Knuckles stood near the doorway, the Master Emerald bag slung back across him. Tails sat to his left, holding his hand and giving it an encouraging squeeze.
Breathe, Sonic!
A huge mistake. Lexi worked on his right arm, wrapping a bit of rubber tube above the elbow. The little patch of fur she had shaved near his inner elbow earlier today for the infamous failed blood work incident showed a vein, ready for poking. A ginormous, monumental, colossal mistake.
I can do this.
He pushed and pulled air through his teeth, a little wheeze escaping with each exhale.
I can do this.
Close your eyes.
Maddie said, her voice soft and gentle.
The buzz will talk to you, distract you. It'll be done before you know it, and slow your breathing. You are gonna hyperventilate.
He did as she suggested, clamped them shut, and focused on deeper breaths.
Tails, talk to me.
You're doing great, Sonic!
The kid said.
Try to picture something relaxing in your mind.
The hedgehog tried, then something cold and wet touched the bare skin on his inner elbow. He yelped.
It's just the alcohol swab.
Lexi said, her voice soft and to his right.
Ready to do.
Tails gave his hand another squeeze.
Picture something calm, like a meet over the kittens we were playing with.
Sonic tried, oh how he tried, but he just couldn't focus.
I can't picture anything. Give me a scene, Tails.
The kid stammered for a second.
Picture a nice calm beach, with soothing, whistling waves out on the deep water.
Hands touched his right arm and his heart raced.
Can't swim. Nearly drowned. Something else, something else, something else.
Oh, then how about flying? You're in a plane, soaring through the sky.
With missiles coming straight at my head.
He shook his head, keeping his eyes tightly closed.
Not working. Nux, what have you got?
Courage, hedgehog, you must focus on calming things. Do not think of spiky, goky things, especially not the great spear five sides for. It is a great beast, larger than one of your cars with a stinker twice the length of its body.
Knuckles said, his voice grave.
It injects its victims with venom to dissolve them from the inside.
Sonic whimpered.
Knuckles!
Tails cried.
That's not helping!
Sometimes the victim is lucky and is really impaled by this stinker. They usually survive with severe organ damage.
He paused.
Sometimes. That is very rare, though.
Sonic, don't listen to him!
The kid soothed in his ear. The next words were not as soft.
Knuckles, stop! That's your idea of calming!
Be thankful I didn't describe the crawling bloodworm. It enters the victim's organo while they sleep.
The hedgehog swallowed hard.
Nux, come closer so I can throw up on you.
I said do not think of it. I cannot help it if he did not follow my instructions.
But then you described it! How could he not think of it if you're describing what it looked like?
so he could know what not to think of.
Sonic uttered a frustrated cry.
Stop talking about it. Tails, your turn. Go.
Okay, I want you to picture.
The kid uttered an annoyed grunt.
Now all I can think of is that stupid flay.
You two are terrible at this.
Sonic cried, opening his eyes to glare at the other two boys.
All you had to do was distract me for 30 seconds so I could get through this stupid poke. And instead you put some nightmare fool into my head that's even worse than the thing I was originally freaked out about.
Knuckles started it.
Tails said, yanking his hand from Sonic's.
It didn't even know something that horrible existed.
Sonic turned to the Echidna.
Seriously, dude, what kind of nightmare planet were you on?
I have been on most planets.
Knuckles said, moving closer to the others.
I have seen things that would haunt your dreams for the rest of your days.
Yeah, and one of them's already in there. Thank you very much.
Sonic said, before shaking his head.
Okay, this didn't work. I tried. Maddie, we're gonna.
He looked over and found Maddie and Lexa smiling down at him. Lexa held up 2 vials of blood.
You were done, Blue.
Maddie said.
Been done for a good 10 seconds.
Sonic checked his arm and found a white bandage wrapped just below his elbow, just like Knuckles and Tails.
Why didn't you?
Honestly, I wanted to see where this conversation was going. You three are hilarious.
Maddie looked at Tails and Knuckles.
Good job, boys. That worked better than I expected.
Turning to Sonic, she leaned over to plant a kiss between his ears.
I'm really proud of you, sweetie.
Sonic stared at the bandage on his arm.
I didn't even feel it.
Of course not.
Maddie said, gathering her work laptop and purse into a messenger bag.
Well, I told you it wouldn't hurt if you just sat still.
The hedgehog hopped off the chair. He looked over at the other boys.
I actually did it.
Good job, Sonic.
Tails cried, pumping a fist into the air. Knuckles nodded with a small smile.
Well done, Sonic. Your badge of courage has been ruined. My masterful distraction has won the day.
But let's not talk about that fly thing ever again.
Sonic shivered.
Seriously? Messed up.
And I second that.
Maddie said, slipping her bag strap on her shoulder.
No more talk of nightmarish creatures, Knuckles.
The Echidna gave a short nod.
Very well.
Time to head out, boys. How about we stop by Mickey D's on the way home?
Sonic pumped a fist into the air. Hint.
Yes?
Tails and Knuckles gave him a questioning glance. He shook his head.
Don't worry, you're gonna love it, especially the freeze. Oh, so good.
We don't normally eat out so much,
She said, leading them to the front.
but we've got some shopping to do tonight.
Shopping.
The fox asked as they waved goodbye to Lexa.
There is no way I'm sleeping out in that tent again tonight, and I've got a couple of boys who need beds.
She gave them a kind smile as she unlocked the Subaru.
Time to start getting you and Knuckles settled into your new home.